All right, guys, welcome. Welcome back to Chasing Excellence, the monthly comp train on Chasing Excellence podcast episode. Last month, we talked about 6 training principles for the forever athlete, and people seem to really enjoy that. So go back and check that one out if you guys are interested. Before we kick off today, I'm obviously here with Ben and Cole. Would love to get one of the two of you to give a short elevator pitch for the feature that just launched this week at the time of recording, not at the time of publishing. So by the time this comes out, it will have been launched for a few weeks. But the feature we just launched this week in the app, the CompTrain Fitness Level. Would love for you guys to give the elevator pitch for that and maybe generate some interest for people to go check that out. What is it?
Yeah, so the comp train fitness levels is a really it's been a labor of love from the team that I'm really excited to be out in the world and living. And we've taken 9 tests across the 3 tenets of fitness: strength, conditioning, and mobility. And those 9 tests essentially compare you to a subset of data to give you an indication of just what your overall fitness level is like, what your strength level looks like, what your conditioning level, and what your mobility looks like. And it's really just to give you a picture, a sense of where you stand. And really, I think the best part about it that we got really passionate and excited about is our ability to then give coach insights to people from there. And once you have your fitness levels and you've input your scores, which is, really important aspect of that so we can assess your level. We then give you an indication of like, "Oh, this is awesome, and this is where you should be putting your focus. This is how you should be training, what days you should be training to improve your overall score." So if your strength is maybe a little bit lower than your conditioning, oh, awesome. Let's focus on your strength, and this is where you should be focusing on your strength and how you should be doing that. And there's a whole coach's insight section that gives a bunch of detail and a lot of information for people to just for all the nerds out there to geek out on, which I really enjoy. So definitely get in there, punch your scores in, and I think you're going to enjoy some of the inputs that you get and coach insights. I think it's gonna be really valuable to the community.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the things to tack onto that is also valuable is it's not like just a one-time snapshot, but that your train, like you said, it's a bit prescriptive or diagnostic in, oh, we've established your strengths and weaknesses, and here are some coaching insights we can give you to shore those up. And as you train in alignment with the, kind of that prescription or those suggestions from the coach, your new scores will populate a new fitness level score as well. So like the training you are doing in an ongoing way will feed your overall score. So progress over time.
With the whole intent and purpose of us helping people progress, move forward, improve their scores, show them progress, get their overall fitness just like elevated over time. And I think it'd be super valuable for people.
It also just looks really cool. So that's fun. Ben, from your experience in the years of coaching that you've had, what would you say the primary problem is that this solves for people? Like, why did we build this? What problem are we trying to solve for folks who want to use this feature?
If I start working with an athlete, the first thing I want to know is their goals, right? So what are you trying to do? It's going to be different if you're trying to win the CrossFit games and trying to run a marathon versus try to enter a powerlifting competition versus try to kick ass in your 90s. The next thing I want to know is where are you right now, which is another word for that is an assessment. From there, we want to understand kind of like the pursuit of any goal, there is diminishing returns. So, said another way, is if you have a 430 mile, to get to a 415 mile could take a year plus of super dedicated training that you'd have to put so much effort into gaining 15 seconds on your mile. That's because you're already super advanced there. Whereas if you took that person that has a 415 mile, and by the way, going from a 430 to 415 mile does nothing to help their overall fitness
Fitness, yeah, sure.
or health. Whereas if you took that athlete, you were like, oh my gosh, you have a 430 mile, but you can also only bench press 65 pounds. Them going from a 65-pound bench press to a 135, literally doubling, happens very quickly, very easily. So what is the thing that we want to do as coaches? We want to give the biggest bang for the buck. how can we get you fitter faster? This is literally the way you would do that is go, where is the low hanging fruit? What is the thing that I can do to get you so much fitter, so much faster? It is not 15 seconds off your mile time. It is let's get you underneath some weight and get you stronger. So that's why we created this thing so that every single individual app user has that diagnostic tool. So, and then we built the coach's insights on top of that to help them connect the dots.
hmm And to piggyback off of that, when people are in there, I mean, there will be some people that can max out some of those tests and they max out the graph and it's like, hey, awesome. And the point is you're fit enough there in that one singular test. Now let's go fill out the rest of your assessment and get all of those up to that same level and make you as well-rounded as possible. You don't need to keep your mile time is fast enough. Like that's great. Unless you are a professional athlete trying to break records, like go put your time and focus on something else and bring up your strength and your mobility and excited about it.
Yeah, that's so interesting too, because one of the things I think it unlocks for people is clarity to focus on the things that will move the needle the most regarding their actual fitness. And but I also think it unlocks the word that for many in our culture has become a four-letter word, which is enough. Like it unlocks this concept of I am fit enough at a certain point. Or maybe I'm strong enough. And what this is revealing to me is that my mobility is lacking. And because my mobility is lacking, I need to accept that I am strong enough and shift focus elsewhere because my real goal, back to Ben's point, is to stay capable forever, to feel good and live well and be able to say yes to everything forever. And if I'm looking at this assessment across these three tenets, the fact that my strength is a 4.9 and my mobility is a 2.1, well, that's a good indicator that the mobility is going to be the limiter, not just now, but in the future in a more drastic way. And then at some point, you focus on those long enough, and your overall score becomes a 4.9 because you bring your mobility up. And then you go, okay, across these three tenets around well rounded fitness, that's enough. And now I go do everything else that I want, and I can go focus on everything else that my fitness awards me. So I really think it gives people the permission, like psychologically, to go, like, this is working and it's enough. And here in this area, I'm recognizing like maybe I could give it a little bit more attention. So it's just precision focus for people, and it creates like this coherence or this resonance to make it very personalized for people. But like we've talked a lot about the polarizing ends of the spectrum being like undertrained or overtrained, and this gives you like the clarity and the permission to stay in the center of that in a lot of ways. So I think it's an awesome tool. I think you guys should go check it out if you haven't seen it already. Hop in and check that out. We will transition to what we're talking about today, which fits super well with this, which is some language that we are using around our well rounded training approach, kind of our complete focus that we're taking now. We've started using this phrase, and it's in a single week. We train heavy, we train fast, we train far, and we train free. And those four categories fit into the three tenets that we're talking about measuring through our fitness assessment or our comp train level system, which is strength, conditioning, and mobility. Heavy is obviously strength. Far and fast fits into kind of both strength and conditioning. And then obviously free is the mobility component of things. So that's what we're going to talk about today is the kind of the whys, what's, and hows of the heavy, fast, far, and free method, and the fact that we want to focus on all four of those components inside of a single week. So yeah, either one of you can take this, kind of speak a bit to each of those categories and just kind of like very high level to frame the conversation in terms of what are all four of those and maybe how does it differ a little bit than just the focus on kind of the lift heavy, run far concept. Like how is this our own approach to kind of complete well-rounded training? So just kind of set the stage with a high level view of each four of those.
I think it's important to consider that with being able to go heavy, fast, far, and free, like really what we're to me in the way that I think about those, it's really it's creating a life of freedom, of capability, this ability to go and do and be an asset in the world. And if any one of those, like what we were just talking about with the fitness levels and the assessment, is if any one of those is too low, you're limited in some way, in some fashion. And our contention, our argument is if you bring all of those up together, the cross section of those three things creates larger amount of fitness. You have more complete fitness. Your fitness is greater, is better. And so the contention is train all of those regularly, bring all of them up so that you have better overall fitness. You have greater capability. You don't have to question, can you go help somebody move something? You don't have to question whether you can go play with your kids. We had one of our ambassadors recently, one of his posts that was put out of him, Paul. It was a beautiful example of getting to just go play with his kids freely. Like, how beautiful is that? You don't have to second guess it. And I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough, and I think it's largely because we're all still younger generations, like if you think about it, is the rate of decline that comes from improving these now and continuing to work on them is going to be so beneficial so that when you get to 75, 80 years old, you're still free, you're still capable. And so it's important to do now. We have this locally coming up called Bloomsday, and it's the 50th anniversary of it, and they're highlighting these what they call perennials. It's all of the racers that have been doing it since the very first race, so they've done all 50
No
races
way.
of Bloomsday. Yeah, it's really really cool.
Oh,
And
that's
so
awesome.
there's this one guy who did it when he was 12 years old. And he's since 12 years old, he's done it every single year, and he's now 62.
That
Wow,
is
that's
And
awesome.
impressive.
he can run it faster than me still at 62. And I looked him up, and he's actually like he's a fit dude. He has some good musculature. Like, he's not a small skinny guy. He's a capable 62-year-old, and he runs
Cole's
6
scoping out
miles
the
a day.
the
I am.
competition for
I'm
this
literally gonna look
race.
out. I'm gonna try to find him, and I'm gonna race him. But the point is his engagement in his endeavors has afforded him this ability at 62 years old to still be extremely capable.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And we can just learn from that and apply that in a lot of ways. In strength, being strong now is going to allow you to be strong later. It's also going to allow for just a healthy, durable body. There's so many components of it. Being more explosive and having good agility and coordination is going to allow for less likelihoods of falling or tripping or just all of there's so many components of it. But again, it allows us capability and this freedom throughout life. And that is, to me, that's so, so important.
Yeah, I also think I agree with you completely about the fact that we are likely not considering the impacts of kind of natural decline or decay at this stage. Really for kind of all three of us to some degree. But at the same time, dude, I mean, you and I are a year apart, 34 and 35, and we are at the age, and Ben is also at the age where we have passed through kind of like the initial benchmarks of when people start complaining about natural decline. Like the number of people who are like, just wait till you're 30. Well, dude, I turned 30 4 years ago and it didn't happen then. And to be honest with you, the 34-year-old version of myself would annihilate the 24-year-old version of myself. I haven't felt it. Now, I do feel like the necessity in terms of like management of energy expenditure and recoverability. And yeah, like some of those natural components. And frankly, just the necessity at being smarter in a well rounded training approach. But I think because kind of nearing kind of late 20s for me, I did make this transition into kind of practice and alignment with what we're talking about delivering now. Like, to your point, I'm not experiencing the same decline or decaying that people our age are experiencing. And I'm looking at Ben approaching 50 going like, well, he's not complaining about the same things that the 50-year-olds I'm hanging out with.
Out
Right.
loud.
Yeah.
Not on a podcast.
Yeah.
Jesus.
If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you know how we feel about Momentous. They've been a partner for this show for years, and they have earned our trust. They do things the right way. Every product independently certified by NSF for sport or informed sport, tested for contaminants, banned substances, or verified for label accuracy. If it does not meet their standards, it just does not hit the shelves. Today, we want to highlight something that a lot of people overlook, which is Momentous Fiber Plus. Most people talk about performance, go straight to protein, training, or sleep, all of course very important, but gut health is the overlooked foundation that makes everything else work. Fiber Plus is a complete 3-in-1 formula, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, and a prebiotic resistant starch designed to support the entire gut health process. Energy stability, nutrient absorption, recovery, focus. It is the missing link for a lot of humans. Right now, Momentous is offering you up to 35% off your first order if you go to livemomentous.com and use the promo code excellence. That's livemomentous.com with the promo code excellence. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, a genuine invitation to pause and ask, how am I actually doing right now? Because here is the thing most of us do not say out loud. There are things that are keeping us up at night, things we carry quietly, trying to figure out all by ourselves. And while that instinct is, of course, understandable, it's not always useful. No one has all the answers all by themselves. Having someone truly with you, someone trained to listen without judgment, to help you see what you can't see from the inside of all of it, that changes everything. BetterHelp makes it genuinely easy to find that person. It's a short questionnaire, a therapist match built around your needs, and 12 years of experience all behind that process. Over 30,000 licensed therapists with more than 6 million people served. You do not have to be on this journey all by yourself. Find support. Have someone with you in therapy. Sign up. Get 10% off at betterhelp.com/excellence. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/excellence.
It made talk to that a little bit is you're not feeling it, but that's because you guys are stayed fit. So you guys have pushed it back a little bit. You will, I promise you, you will feel it after age 45. For me is when I started to really, at 42, I felt like still bulletproof, could kind of do anything, but I think it just happens at different times. And kind of that's really where the science points to is, sarcopenia and muscle loss and RMR, resting metabolic rate slowing down. Those start to happen after age 40. But that's not really what this podcast is about. This podcast is about this conversation is why heavy, fast, far, and free. And Cole's words, I think, are spot on. The first, and starting with freedom. It's like, that's awesome. Freedom at any age is for sure. Become an asset, become more capable, become more durable. The word that I've really liked to use, and we've talked about this, offline a little bit, is we start to talk about like pushing off the nursing home and stuff like it becomes, that's a worthy cause, but it's sort of for us. I know for you guys aren't thinking about that. It's a little soft and ambiguous because it's decades away. I like to think of it as like, just be more formidable. Like what would make someone more formidable in any endeavor? So what do you need to be able to be formidable regardless of what happens? And it's sort of like the extreme example of this would be you're living in like Mad Max world, like apocalyptic future, right? Dystopian future where it's like last man, like woman alive, and it's a survival game. What would you need there? You need to be strong, fast, be able to go far, and you better be able to move freely. Like that's actually the things that make you more formidable. And having 1 is better than 0. That's kind of having 2 is better than 3, and 3 is better than 4, and 4 is better than 5. So what we are saying is we want to train all of those aspects every week. It is not the world I left, which was I'm a high school football player, got to get strong and fast. Then I left that, become a triathlete. Who cares about how fast you are and how strong you are? You got to go far. And then my mobility suffered huge. So I got into like Bikram yoga and did that every week. And all of a sudden that's like all about mobility. That's like just the pendulum swinging from one end to the other to the other. And what we're looking for actually is to fill up all of the buckets as much as we possibly can And if one starts to spill over, like that doesn't help. Like we don't need that. We want it to be all full. So it's going back to your decline thing a little bit. I'm going to use this to get into the why heavy, far, fast, and free. Talked about resting metabolic rate. That declines not as much, meaning your metabolism, like how fast you burn calories. And everyone's like, my metabolism's slowing down. That's why I'm gaining weight over 40. That's true. It is actually a thing, but it only declines 1 to 2% per decade. It is not meaning like literally a handful of calories a year. This is not the thing. What ends up happening is people become less active because they can't move freely. They don't have the endurance. They don't have the strength. They can't move. Okay. Your strength declines 2 to 3% per decade. That's almost double. That's a big one. That's more important. Preserve muscle mass. Your cardiovascular system is very, very similar to that. It kind of declines at the same rate. Here's what most people aren't doing in their training, though. Your mobility declines faster than that. This is why people, as they get older, start to get bent over at the hips and their shoulders start to round forward and they can no longer access the overhead position. Your mobility actually speeds up hugely after age 40, and it's exponential. What happens from 40 to 50 is not the same as what happens from 60 to 70. Best time to preserve it was 20 years ago. Next best time is today. But more so than those 3 buckets, the one that's kind of like missed the most, and this is where the research will catch up a little bit because right now it's all about kind of 3 things. It's like VO2 max, muscle mass, and your grip strength. That's what all longevity is pointing to. The one that declines, so again, resting metabolic rate, your metabolism, 1 to 2% per decade. Strength, 2 to 3% per decade. Your power, so your ability to move quickly, this is fast, declines 1 to 2% per year. That's 10 to 20% per decade. Now think about this. Everyone talks about preserving, longevity, and they're like, you need to have the muscle mass and the bone density because if you fall, if you trip on the curb, you need to have strong bones so they don't break because everybody now knows you break your hip, your all-cause mortality goes up by 30%, meaning chance of you being dead. This is after the age of, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's after the age of 65, I think. So it's really important to have strong bone density. It's really strong to have, but what we actually want to do is prevent the fall in the first place. What that means is the ability to move your body quickly. You get out of balance, you can catch yourself fast. This is why we include plyometrics in our training program. True plyometrics and low amplitude, meaning just fast feet. So when you think about more formidable across your lifespan, it is all these things. We want all of them. We want to be strong, but we also want to be fast. And fast is not just run faster miles, run faster 100-meter dashes. It is true like explosiveness. And this is why we love jumping. We love plyometry. We love jumping. But it's also move far. Let's have the endurance. Like cardiovascular, there's no kind of faking the funk now in terms of the importance of that, in terms of VO2 max research and what it does for health and how important it is to be able to be a formidable human being. And then mobility. Like this is the big one that was really eye-opening for me is we have a guy in the gym that you guys know as well, who I would have said I am probably fitter than, right? Like I beat him in most workouts, but I know he has much better mobility than me. And his overall fitness score, when we both did the assessment in the app, was higher. And my first kind of thing was like, nah, then this can't be right. Like we're about the same strength. He might be a hair stronger, but I can annihilate him in all the workouts. And when I start to really think about it, I can foresee if I don't take better care of my mobility, how that is going to drastically affect my ability to live a full life in the next few decades. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to really, really work on this. So I've done that. I've started to like, this is very motivate. Like first off, like knowledge, emotion, belief, right? It is, I have now the knowledge about it. And now I believe that if I do this, and now I'm like super motivated to kind of like take control of this thing. And the mobility tests that we have in place also are kind of like neat, fun, and cool. It's not just like this like touch your toes thing. So it makes it a lot. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I also want to call out the images you guys see if you get in the app. Cole is the one demoing like the positional levels of the mobility tests, and they're not AI.
Bonkers,
They
bonkers.
look, it looks like they're AI.
Yeah, but it shows like these. It shows like what these like CrossFit athletes like. It's so under. We talked about this in a recent show, but it's so underrated what these athletes are capable of. Like it is unbelievable how well rounded.
Yeah, I want to push on the. I want to highlight the mobility side of that. I very much believe that that is what gave me my longevity in my career, bar none. I had great mental fitness and I could just stay engaged and I had good movement patterns and I could live in good movement patterns and my body wasn't breaking down with all of the training volume because I was moving efficiently. I was able to move through full ranges of motion. I spent an immense amount of time on improving my mobility. I played college football. I came out of football with poor shoulder mobility, terrible squat mechanics. We never went below parallel. We went to parallel and we did it in a wide powerlifting stance. I had to completely rewrite my movement patterns and range of motion. And I'm so glad I did. I feel so free today. And to be able to get into those positions at any point it feels absolutely incredible. And there's no doubt in my mind that is what gave me such a long career when I was competing.
Yeah, makes sense. Also, having watched a lot of athletes in a lot of different domains and a lot of different sports train and compete, I do think, like as a general rule, or kind of as a general measurement, Ben is right. It is an unbelievable, like the CrossFit space in particular, is an unbelievable representation of well-rounded ability. I do think I have watched enough CrossFitters train and compete though to recognize, to your point, Cole, the ones that don't have a lot of longevity or who have like a self-inflicted ceiling on their performance are lacking in two things, are lacking in the more nuancy aspects of their mobility and of their like agility and actual athleticism. Like they're really strong and they can move fast in terms of being able to run a faster mile and do a really fast workout. But in terms of like their actual agility, coordination, athletic movement, and to your point, their mobility, I think has become a significant limiter in kind of that like self-inflicted ceiling that they have. And it is the nuance, it's the more nuanced stuff, it's the harder stuff. And it's certainly not the stuff that looks as awesome on Instagram or a leaderboard.
It's not
So
postable.
yeah, hard to emphasize.
Can't post it to the gram. I think it's interesting because, you're starting to see the handfuls of different like training methods and approaches and there's just more and more coming about and I really think that what we're doing is going to be beneficial to all of them. And I think that if more people start to adopt this more well-rounded thinking, you'll start to see better performances across all of them. Even if you consider high rocks athletes and hybrid athletes, they're going to see, I think, and I think that there's plenty of research around longevity in athletes regarding to if they have better mobility, which I would argue that a lot of elite high rocks athletes don't have the best mobility. There's a few of them. Especially on the women's side that came from a CrossFit background that spent more time doing mobility stuff. That's like okay, like you move well, but there's a lot of them that don't. They're really just they're endurance athletes more than anything, which is the kind of the direction that high rocks is going. Anyways, it's more of an endurance sport than it is anything else. I know it's at least turning into that. And if they spend more time balancing out their overall fitness, they will have longer longevity. Now, if you're competing in a sport, there's an asterisk. Focus on your sport and the thing that's going to drive your sport and your times. Okay, fine. That's a whole different conversation than what we're having here today. But for the people who are choosing training methods, hey, I'm going to train just high rocks. make sure that you're touching the other things. Make sure that you're still getting strong. Make sure you're lifting heavy. Make sure that you are working on mobility.
I'm curious to get your all's thoughts on this for the purpose of the audience, as I think this is actually a significant problem that we want to help solve for people, is understanding where that line is or where that threshold is between well-rounded approach and specialization. Because I know a lot of people, you guys know a lot of people who technically would fit into the bucket or fit into the category of competing in the sport of high rocks, competing in the sport of CrossFit at some level, whether that's at the local level, whether that is at open level in high rocks, the pro level in high rocks, whether that's at a local competition for CrossFit, whether that is, or maybe a triathlete, maybe they're doing triathlons or they're doing an Ironman or endurance race or something like that. We know a lot of people who participate, and by participation in these arenas would consider themselves competitors in those domains. What is the threshold or what is the level where it no longer makes sense for you to take this well-rounded, heavy, fast, far, free approach and start sacrificing components of one, two, or three of those for the purpose of performance in these other areas? Maybe said even more clearly, how do you reverse engineer it based off of their objectives and their goals? Like, how would you coach somebody to know that, Ben, when it goes like, oh, this heavy, fast, far, free approach is gonna get you the results that you want without the pendulum swing, without the I got super weak, but I ran a marathon, or I ran a marathon and my mobility sucks. Like, how do you reverse engineer their objectives and their goals and their desired outcomes for participation in these arenas to be able to say to them, the heavy, fast, far, free approach is going to get you what you want, versus what you want actually is going to require a specialization. And by specialization results in sacrifice of longevity and probably sacrifice in like feeling well in one of these other areas. How do you guide people through that?
Well, you kind of gave it away in terms of you asked them their goals. And if someone's goal, let's take any one of those endeavors, is to do a high rocks, we don't just stop there as a coach. We wouldn't say, okay, your goal is to do a high rocks. Let's create your training plan. The follow-up questions that are, do you have any more specific goals for that? Meaning, are you doing this to have fun, to sign up for your first event, to see what it's like? Or is it to break an hour and potentially go pro? Or is it just like, no, this is like the thing I want to do as well as I possibly can in this. It means a lot to me. The follow-up question to any of those is almost always the same, which is, that sounds really interesting. Tell me why. And this is the coach's job. So I want to, if someone says, fill in the blank, local CrossFit competition, high rocks, marathon. I want to run a marathon. Great. Any more specifics than that? Is it just like you want to do it? Obviously, it's like, do you have an idea of when you're going to do it? Which one? What's your training background before this? So there's other questions that go to this, but to stay to your point, it's, I want to do a marathon. Great. Any sort of like objective goals for the marathon? And it's like, I just want to be able to do it and feel good about that. So, I'd love to run under 4 hours, but if I just want to basically stay injury free. That sounds great. Why is this a goal for you? That's the one that's usually missing, right? And then this is the coach's job, because usually the answer has something to do with like, well, I think it's a really good way for me to get into shape, which would be different than, this has always been a lifetime bucket list for me. It's just something I've always wanted to do forever, versus I'm raising money for cancer because my mom died of breast cancer. Like, you have to know the reason behind it. So if it is because I want to qualify for Boston, like there's all these different things. If the answer is because I think it's a really good way to get into shape, this is now the coach's job to have a better understanding of, what does in shape mean? What does it mean to that individual? And is there some reframing that we need? It's basically like, hey, I want to go to med school. Cool. Why do you want to go to med school? Because, and you have a conversation with the person. Because something my parents always wanted me to do. Well, is this something that you want to do? Or is this something that you're doing it to satisfy your parents? Well, it's because I feel like if I don't, I'll be a failure. Okay, then, and you have like this conversation, and you as the coach with like, the perspective and the wisdom of how to get someone into shape and or how to run a sub 3.5 or 4 hour marathon can help guide that person. If it is truly, I want to qualify for Boston because it's been a lifelong bucket list of mine, and I'm doing it for all of these reasons that make a ton of sense, then it gets into your point of like, where does this fall into specialization versus more well rounded GPP training? If it is, I just want to do this to get into shape, I would have a conversation with them to kind of question if this is the best way for them to get into shape. Is there a more effective way? And you frame up, what does in shape mean? Because I think we all know people have run marathons that have not gotten into any better shape. Like you can go through that process and not end up where you want to, and you kind of help them along that process. But maybe just get to your punchline of how do you delineate that line. First, you actually like decide of if is there a line to delineate, which is kind of what we're just talking about. Then if there is, like I want to do this because I want to run a sub 3 hour marathon. It's just something I've thought I've always wanted to do. I feel like that's something that's important to me. And I've run a couple of them and ... Okay. Then it becomes where does this fit in? And it has to do then with historical performances. If they've run 10 other sub 330s, we could probably keep them pretty well rounded and strong as they're going about this. If they've never run a marathon before, you're gonna have to specialize more. That just literally is the thing. You can still lift some, you can still work on some explosiveness because it'll benefit in the long run. There's plenty of people that are showing this now that across any distances, some levels of strength training and explosiveness is beneficial. But you kind of just like work on that sort of sliding scales of how much you're going to pour your energy. What's the 80-20? For somebody that's done 10 before and done 330s before, we're probably not going to have them run 100-mile weeks. Somebody that is newer to this, the percentage of their time training is going to have to lean more into the specifics because they just don't have that historical background. The endurance hasn't been built up. So you have to do more. And it would be the same thing if it was the other, right? I want to enter a powerlifting competition and I want to break 1,500 pounds. That's okay. Like you're not going to be able to just kind of run 10 miles 3 times a week if you want to do that. You can keep running, but it's going to be like it's just the nature of the specialization that you have to get into. Then from there is like the more varied the actual endeavor, the more you stay, right? So if they're going to do CrossFit, you can stay kind of like across the board because the test kind of is across the board.
I think there's something valuable in terms of the minimal effective dose to maintain certain things. And I think that's really something that's important of like, what Ben's pointing out, like, okay, great. Like you've only ever run a 4-hour marathon, but you want to break 315. It's like, oh, okay, we got to put a lot of time and training into that. You're going to have to log a lot of miles and do this. But there is huge value in maintaining the strength that you do have, the mobility you do have without losing that, so that when you get on the other side of it, you can then go back to improving it. And there are minimal effective doses, touching strength training at least twice a week, or excuse me, once a week, 2 times a week. Go in and do lower body stuff, go in and do upper body stuff. All you need to do is 3 sets of 2 reps at 85%. And it's like, you're at least going to maintain that. And, so there's that importance. I actually even had this conversation with somebody recently. He was like, I really want to do a high rocks and I really want to perform well. I was like, okay, well, if you want to perform well, like just call it out. You're a pretty strong dude. You're strong, you're fit, you're mobile. If you want to perform better, like you got to just be a faster runner. So you can need to run more. But it's going to be very valuable for you to continue to lift weights. Lift your weights. You're going to move the sleds better. You're going to be able to do the wall balls easier and the lunges. But you are going to need to focus on your running and do more running. But don't lose sight of the other things and at least maintain that. And we mapped out what a week would look like and whatnot. But yeah, I think the minimal effective dose for
That's really good in the framing of the fact that it's healthy to have objectives that you're chasing. So even if your goal is like, man, I just want to be capable to say yes forever. I want to feel good in my body. I want to be able to never have to sit the sidelines, like all the stuff that we say. if you have the kind of forever athlete mentality, it's still really useful to have things that you are chasing seasonally for the purpose of not just growth and fitness, but growth holistically, like just as a person. Like those seasonal or those kind of intermittent experiences are really, really valuable. And I think that when you put something like that on the calendar, it also helps motivate consistency, motivate you to be more consistent, and even like your compliance likely goes up because you have this thing that you're working toward. And I think that's really valuable. So I think what you just called out, Cole, is super useful in terms of a point of application, which is you can chase these different things without completely letting your base of well-rounded fitness deteriorate. And then in the seasons that you aren't chasing anything, it's about increasing like the durability and, width and height and size of that base so that next time that you go to chase something, the thing that you're keeping from deteriorating is bigger than it used to be. And so it is seasonal in that way. I mean, I really love like the pendulum concept, like what you brought up, Ben, which is like when you go swinging from extreme to extreme, it's quite bad for your body in general. And it keeps your base very, very brittle versus like keep the base strong. And so when it's time for you to go and chase this thing, what is the minimum effective dose so you keep your base from deteriorating? You shouldn't expect to improve, 1, 2, and 3 while you're chasing 4, but you can keep 1, 2, and 3 from completely disappearing. And then when it's time to come back and focus on all 4 at the same time, you make all 4 stronger. So I love that. I think it's awesome.
There's a whole episode that we could do in terms of what it looks like for the minimum effective dose to build strength alongside building endurance. It's a huge, long conversation in how you order your training day, how you prioritize it, like even structure your days in order to get the maximal dose of it and the right signalings and adaptations. I mean, there's so much nuance that goes into it and thinking that goes into it, which we could definitely have in another future point. But the point is it can be done and it should be done together. Like you should not let others fall off. It is doable. It just takes some discipline and some planning. A good structure does a lot.
It is almost as if somebody sets a goal, they should start with a assessment of their fitness level currently to identify the gaps between where they are and where they want to be.
Interesting.
Maybe we can put something together for them.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay, I think maybe to make this useful then.
Yep.
Let's start as far as application for people. Ben, which one? Let's start at the bottom of kind of our movement hierarchy, which is like sedentary. I don't think most people who are listening to this are sedentary. It's not kind of the demographic of chasers of excellence or comp trainers, but those people know people who I know that they want to get moving. And so how would you speak to a sedentary person and go like, hey, here's this cool framework, heavy, fast, far, and free. Do that every week. We've established heavy is, for the most part, your strength. Fast is both, yes, kind of breathe heavy, train hard, but also this kind of athletic agility, plyometric movement. Far is conditioning and endurance, threshold, aerobic base, things along those lines. And then free is the mobility component of things. So heavy, fast, far, and free. You're pitching that to somebody who is sedentary. What's the gateway? Like, what is the bucket to start with and why?
None of them.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's what it is. You're trying to get this person to move. You're not trying to do any of those things. So you're going to try to take the thing that they are most willing to comply with. And that's it. Is it going for walks? Is it sitting on a bike? Is it gardening? If you're trying to get someone from sedentary, it's such a huge, massive step to get to movement.
That's actually really interesting. And I actually, the way that you framed it, I would agree with you. I was going to frame it differently just to answer the question directly. And I was going to answer with far. And the only reason was because of those 4 options, it was the thing that most people could comply with. Get on something and move a little bit for some point of time. Start walking, start biking easily, start moving to some capacity. Which is all I was trying to get to, was just like compliancing. Exactly what Ben is pointing at is what will they comply to and get moving to, and to ultimately improve any of them. Because if they start doing that.
Right. If you have a 350-pound guy that used to play college football, like let him do some bicep curls. Like it just doesn't matter what the thing is. So it's whatever they're going to comply with. So in terms of the movement hierarchy, that's why it goes from sedentary to movement. We haven't gotten to exercising yet. We're not exercising. We're just moving. So this is the Jared Subway thing, right? You guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
Are you guys
Oh,
too
yeah.
young for that?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Subway
no,
became
no,
real.
no.
Subway's whole marketing campaign when they first came out was this guy named Jared who was 400 pounds and he got down to under 200 pounds literally just by walking, not far. So it wasn't far yet. He just literally walked every day to the Subway, had a sandwich, and walked home. This is why it's movement. We're not exercising just yet.
Yeah. I like that too, because you made one of the examples you gave was like gardening, get outside and garden. And I think you can create a whole category or a bucket of activities like that. And psychologically for people, that's a cool place to start because it helps frame the psychology of it being your training. You just found this thing you really enjoy doing, which is gardening. And do you want to be able to do that forever? Well, in order to be able to do that forever, you're going to have to intervene now in some way. So it's like I feel like people finding expressions of capability is an awesome entry point or gateway to coaching the fact that they are going to have to intervene now to maintain the capability to do that thing that they enjoy and love. So I really like that as a starting point.
Yeah.
So
And it could be a lot of things, right? It could be dancing, right? It doesn't have to be gardening. It doesn't have to be walking your dog. It's just what is the thing that you're going to do to literally just move your body?
yeah, we know it is dancing for you specifically.
Dancing
For
for sure.
Ben.
Yeah. As long as one of my 3 songs come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Ben, you already spoke a little bit to kind of what the buckets protect you from. Is there a way we can very simply speak to, again, in terms of like equipping folks with an understanding of the value for each and also how to talk about this? Because I really think that's I could be wrong, but I think that's a huge advantage to give people who listen to this podcast is arming them with credible information they can share with other people, because people who listen to this are very passionate about what they believe and they hold the convictions really close to heart. And what they want to do is get other people to, I guess, proselytize that, to get other people to also live better lives. So how can we arm them with problem solutions that these things solve for people? What does heavy solve? What does fast solve? What does far solve? What does free solve? And we know holistically, it's just longevity, being able to be capable forever. But are there other stats research, like you've kind of already shared a little bit, for any of those?
Yeah. So in terms of the strength, what we kind of lean into is the primary foundational, the power lifts. It is squat, dead, and bench. The reason we choose those is because they have the biggest effect on total strength. You can actually just move more external loads with those movements than with the big compound movements than you can with anything else. Why does that matter? The greater your strength, it's perfectly correlated with lifespan and health span. And on top of that, it also creates more muscle. Muscle is sort of like a sponge for glucose. So it actually it makes like the sugar you consume like a place to go besides fat. And we know that fat is the opposite of that. The more fat you have on your body, the less your lifespan, the less your health span. So muscle matters. On top of that, if we're talking about bone density, which we've already talked about, those 3 lifts have more implications on improving bone density than basically just about anything you can do, including impact. It's just the bones get stronger from mechanical tension than they do impact. So that's the strength one. The power one we talked about is that's going to decline the fastest of all of these things. And if you want to maintain sort of athleticism, we'll call it, like I feel this already at 50 years old. I went and played soccer with my kids' team, and I'm trying to do what I can to preserve this. I'm very intentional with it, and I am not where I used to be in terms of being able to be quick at all. I wish I had spent more time on this at a younger age, but again, the next best time is to focus on it today. So in terms of being able to move quickly, which is so important, right? For anything from your grandchild is running across the street, like your endurance isn't going to help you there. Your strength isn't going to help you there. You got to be quick. So to be as Cole said, an asset, it matters. Conditioning, we'll just kind of use the scientific correlate for that, which is VO2 max. we know that through this really popular research now that has been kind of like thrown everywhere, end stage kidney disease, diabetes, smoking, all of those have about a 20 to 40% impact on your all cause mortality, meaning the chance of you being dead in a year. I'm going to say those numbers again: 20 to 40%. Smoking being on the highest end of that, which is 40%. Being in the lowest, meaning the bottom 25th percentile in VO2 max versus being in the top 5% of VO2 max, doesn't have a 20 to 40% impact on health. It has a 400% impact. Just like everybody understands. This is where I usually start with people in terms of when I talk about people that are trying to, like, the importance of exercise and the importance of training. Every single person, because the government has done such a good job starting in the 60s, really in the 70s and 80s, a massive campaign about the dangers of smoking. We might be at the beginning stages of that, but really we haven't done it in terms of the dangers of obesity and sedentarism and lack of fitness. But this is like, it's literally 10x, almost to the exact number, 10x more impactful than what smoking is. So this is where we kind of start there. The research isn't as good in terms of mobility, in terms of the studies we can point to. There are a couple, but really the thing is just like anecdotally, it's just like you can see it better than any of these things. That my grandfather, I didn't quite get it, but he always kind of walked kind of hinged forward, right? First off, he had his belt buckle up by his nipples, and he had his, he was basically just a belt and a hat. And he would walk like kind of hinged over in like really short steps. And I was like, well, that's just what I realize now, like, oh my gosh, that's tight hip flexors. I see that now. I understand what that is. So if we can preserve mobility, particularly through the three biggest range of motion joints, which are ankles, hips, and shoulders, we can preserve so much, not only quality of life, but injury prevention, right? If you can only get your shoulder to go back the distance of your midline, you cannot extend beyond that, and you fall and try to catch yourself, and the impact brings your elbow back behind it, you tear things in your shoulder. So if you have bigger range of motion, you have more you're freer to do more things. So that's why these things are important. And then we interject them into the daily training week in the most efficacious way that we can, knowing that certain ones need to be trained more frequently than others, and other ones, if you train them too frequently, you overtrain. So we built out our week to kind of make sure that we're hitting the sweet spots.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's wrap it there then. Minimum effective dose, we've talked about that a little bit. And then, Ben, it's what you just commented on. If somebody could only pick one thing to do, like one legitimate training tool or modality for each one of these four, what is the movement that you would suggest? What is the way that you would suggest they train it to get highest return on an investment for all four of these categories in a single week?
For the strength, it would be a compound barbell. And we would love for that to be as multi-joint, muscular as possible. But what we choose, I already said, is squat, dead, and press. Bench press being kind of the normal one. But we also do shoulder to overhead stuff. And then we also do incorporate pull-ups. So those are the kind of the lower body pulling and pushing, upper body pulling and pushing. For the explosiveness one, it's plyometrics. And honestly, do whatever you want to do. Jump on a box, do a broad jump, do a vertical jump, do like quick feet, whatever you want to do. Yeah, it is basically like skipping. Maybe skipping would be the thing because you think you could hold on to the longest. But honestly, it's like you just got to kind of like move your feet fast through and or explosively. For the cardiovascular, sort of the far one, I would have said running forever for this one, just because we're bipedal beings and that's how we roam the earth, is by moving one foot in front of the other. But I also see the wear and tear that running takes when you go into the far category. And in terms of just pure cardiovascular, if we're just like putting things in their singular bucket, biking is more accessible, meaning to anyone of any population, age, weight, injury thing, and you can get basically the same benefits as running. But I would choose running first if there was no limitation, just because of the carryover.
How long? How far? in order to hit the far category and the benefits of that stimulus? How far?
Probably not as long and far as people actually think you need to, because all of these things, once you get out of the anaerobic capacity, it's like basically aerobic is almost like a light switch, right? There's not a ton of carryover from one to the other. There certainly is. But once you get into the aerobic category, which is basically over 3 minutes, you're working on your endurance. Yes, it's glycolytic, but that raises the ceiling of your lactic, which raises the ceiling of your VO2, which raises the ceiling of your endurance. That's why a 6-minute bike test is such a good indicator of the 12-minute Cooper test, which is such a good indicator of your FTP, which is your lactic threshold, which is such a good indicator of your aerobic endurance.
Which is actually it is exactly the reason why we chose the test to start with our
That's
fitness
right. You
levels
like
inside the app. It's because
they're
of the
like 6 to 10
carryover.
minutes.
All 3 of them, but in 3 different modalities, because it has the biggest carryover across anaerobic capacity to aerobic endurance and so on and so forth.
So it is that. It's like when we say far, it's like I would want like a sedentary, a person that's just in movement. I'd want to get them to where they could kind of move continuously at a low to moderate activity level for 10 minutes. Like that's what we're trying to do. It's like, can you move nonstop for 10 minutes? That has so much carryover. And then if we're going to work with people like you guys, then yeah, it's like 40 minutes plus is kind of the big thing that we're looking for in terms of the far. So we're talking like 10K runs. And then free, kind of said it, but pay attention to the 3 big joints: ankles, hips, and shoulders. There's so many things that people want to focus on: wrist flexibility and the quads and the hamstrings and all that. Like not important, but as long as you focus on the 3 big ones, and I would just take what's the most limiting, focus on whatever the biggest limiter is of those 3.
It's really important to spend time you're in range of motion. That is what will help. We don't need to get too complicated. You don't need to do it with load. You just spend time there. If it's just stretching at that, fine, that's going to improve it. If it's moving and actively trying to resist something at that range of motion, great, even better. Like, but spend time there, and that will rewrite how the brain thinks about that range of motion.
Yeah, I could see a follow-up question in terms of how to make this effective, like highest return on investment. If I'm coming and saying, "Hey, I want to focus on all 4 of these," and I can focus on each one time per week. So I'm going to stretch one time per week. What is the duration that somebody would need to hold positions to get kind of the adaptation and the benefit from it? Like,
Oh, I mean, it's super simple. There's a few small protocols. You could just do 3 sets of 30-second holds with 30 seconds on and off. Like, it's as simple as that. Hold positions for a minute a day. There's very simple protocols like that that people can find and do. Same thing with like what we're talking about with lifting. 3 sets of a few reps, of a couple reps. Move it as fast as you can. If it's at 70%, because that's all you got for the day, great, awesome. Just move it quickly. That will benefit you to some capacity, right? There's a wide spectrum, and there needs to be, because there's a wide spectrum of people and what they are able to do. So, I think ultimately it comes down to then progressive over time, progressively overloading those things and just continuing to improve them and push those over time. And that's where you're going to get the biggest improvements.
cool. Ben, what's your favorite stretch?
My favorite stretch is, kind of to Cole's point, is holding the bottom of squat. Yeah, I think that's just like opening up your hips, sitting in the bottom of squat, either holding on something for a counterbalance or, using your elbows to drive your knees out and moving it side to side. I usually do it holding onto a pole and call it pole prying. That would be my favorite. And then I also like to, like, while I'm there, reach one arm up on the pole and try to stretch out through the lat and the side. So you get this kind of like total body overhead.
How long are you in that position? How many days a week?
I do it before every training session. But I would say I'm in that position for 2 to 3 minutes each time.
Mhm. Mine is the hurdler stretch. I love the hurdler stretch. It's my favorite. I used to hurdle as well. And that also, to Ben's point, I already have great ankle mobility. And it's like my squat is naturally really good. But that opens up an even more range of motion in my hips that I really, really like to have, that kind of being able to open up laterally. So if people don't if they can get into a hurdler stretch, that's also is a really good one to get into.
Cool. Cole, heavy, fast, far, and free. Which of those 4 is your weakness, and what do you do to focus on it?
Oh, far by far. The far is the one that, but also like, I understanding that I'm in a different category of fitness, just given my history. And so I've spent a ton of time developing all the other ones and not nearly as much time developing duration, endurance. And so, that's one that I've definitely improved it. It's jumped up a ton, and I'm starting to teeter with some paces and speeds and stuff and running particularly that I didn't know that I'd ever really get to. And that's been really exciting. And to the point where I'm nearing a milestone that in my mind, if I break, I've wiped it clean. I've said it. I'm well rounded compared to everything else, and I'm going to go back to focusing a little bit more now, raising them all together. Because I have been in this constant state for about a year now, where I've just been maintaining a lot of other things to improve that. It actually feels really good to be nearing what goal I set, to the point where it's like, okay, great. Now let's go back to just raising it all up together
What's the milestone? What's the goal?
to break a sub 3 marathon. And just recently I went out for a 14-mile run, and just over 9 miles of it was at marathon goal pace, a 6:52. And I was able to hold that and not have my heart rate go above my lactate threshold, which is a big indicator that you're still fairly aerobic. And so I'm starting to push that out, and that's been cool to see. I haven't lost my body mass. This, 3 days later after I did that run, and then I back squatted 405 for a triple pretty easily. I'm still, I pulled on a hex bar, I pulled, I think it was like 485 for 3 reps on a hex bar. So, it's like I'm maintaining a lot of the other aspects. I'm still at 200 pounds. So my lean body mass is still there. And it takes a lot of intentionality to keep all of those things. But it's been cool to see that area, that endurance improving.
Legit.
Yeah. 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 Thanks for asking.
You guys heard it. It's 2027 sub 3 hour marathon? Is that the objective in terms of timeline?
I haven't told you guys this yet, but I was thinking about making attempts later this year in 2026. It's just we have a lot on the calendar, and so
We
it's
do.
especially around
Yeah.
that time that I wanted to do
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I've already mapped out a course. I was actually going to do it self-supported with some, and have some like friends and stuff do it here, just because doing it at a sanctioned event with all the things on the calendar would be tough. But yeah.
Well, you guys heard it. If you want to participate in Cole's self-sanctioned, self-supported marathon, let us know.
That would be really fun. That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we created an event.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap it there. Couple of things though. If you guys have listened to the ends, first, get in the app, try out the CompTrain fitness levels. Let us know what you think. Second, submit questions for us to be able to chat about, and anything that you would like me to ask Ben and Cole surrounding the monthly CompTrain on Chasing Excellence podcast episodes. Lastly, as of this week, the 3 of us have committed to High Rocks Boston in October. So if you guys are going to be around for that, we will be there doing doubles with some friends, and maybe relay, and who the heck knows what else. But obviously that's where Ben is based. So
I just saw that they have the men's pro on Friday morning, which is before all of our other races. So I actually might throw down on that, because I got really tired of all the ones that I've done. It's like 8 p.m. on Sunday night. I'm like,
yeah, you're asleep by then for sure.
I am.
Yeah, you have the 2 High Rockses you have done is been inside of your bedtime window.
Yes.
So who knows?
Yeah, it'll be a good time. So come join us.
Cool. Yeah, October. If you're going to be around, let us know. Obviously, that's where CompTrain Natick is. It's where Ben's located. So love to see you guys there as well.
Get a little shakeout run together.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Cool. All right,
Thank you
appreciate
guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. 2 quick things before you go. First, the 531 listener guide for this episode is in the show notes. 5 big ideas, 3 reflection questions, and 1 key takeaway. Check it out at the link in the show notes. And second, if you're ready to do the daily work, not just listen to the show, the Chase Club is where the crew does that together. Daily lessons, monthly challenges, a Friday Chase Club chat club, all of it at the link in the show notes and chasingexcellence.email.